Okay, welcome everyone. My name is Babu. I'll be the chair of this session on interaction with virtual agents, part 2. We have 4 very exciting presentations here today, this afternoon. And we're going to start with the very first presentation, Avoiding Virtual Characters, the Effects of Proximity and Gesture. And the speaker is Michael Nelson.
Thank you. I am Michael Nelson, and as he said, I will be presenting Avoiding Virtual Characters, the Effects of Proximity and Gesture. So VR allows for people to engage with virtual characters in ways that very closely mimic actual reality. The dynamics of human interactions with virtual characters are complex and multifaceted, so understanding the factors that influence these interactions are important as they influence users' experience within these scenarios. Virtual avatars and characters have been widely explored within cognitive tasks, social interactions, and virtual crowds. Studies have shown that virtual characters can elicit emotional and behavioral responses such as empathy or concern based off of their appearance or personality. This is for instances of one individual. When it comes to crowds, it's a bit harder for people to discern the social dynamics that are within, as it's a complex scene. Personal space and proxemic studies have shown that they affect the comforts and social interaction in both physical and virtual settings. And character gestures have been shown that overall movement has, when compared to specific gestures, elicits more of a response. In virtual environments, active gestures such as those indicating conflict, can enhance emotional reactivity and perceived behavioral interdependence. Emotional reactions are also heightened, and avoidance decisions with character displaying negative behavior traits or proximity violations are heightened for this. So the instance we're looking at is so because of these 2 important factors, proximity and the gestures that a virtual character has, we are examining these 2 factors in a 2 character interaction scene. We are looking at self-reported metrics, avoidance movement, and avoidance decisions. This is a 2x3 within study group with randomized conditions. For gesture, we have passive and active gestures, and for proximity, we have close, middle, and far. We had 26 participants ranging 18 to 31 with 15 men, 9 women, 1 non-binary, and 1 non-disclosed. All participants within this study had some experience with VR, and 6 had room scale experience. To develop this application, we used our university's motion capture lab with an HTC Vive Pro and a backpack computer that is remotely controlled with another computer to initialize conditions. To ensure that walking in these scenarios avoids environmental mismatch, we created a replica of this scene, of this environment in Unity. And in the scene, there are 2 markers, the blue marker where participants will start, and a red marker, which is the destination for their avoidance task. These are the 2 characters that we used for this study. Both males at average height, placed in the midpoint between the starting and target markers. These are the gesture conditions. We have passive gestures, which are characterized by subtle idle motions, representing unconscious body movement, and active gestures, which are high-amplitude movements simulating an argument between the characters. For proximity distances, we follow proximity, so close would be in the intimate space, middle is in the personal space, and far is in the social space. To answer these research questions, these are the metrics we used. So we have co-presence, attentional allocation, and behavioral independence with emotional reactivity and perceived politeness. To look into avoidance behaviors, we recorded the duration, the trajectory length, and the speed while navigating through these tasks. And to analyze the avoidance decisions, we look at pass through around, whether or not they chose to go in between the characters or around the characters, as well as the minimum side distance, which is the side, either front or back, where characters are closest to, where people cross closest to these characters. So we did an ANOVA, one repeated ANOVA, so we will look at the results real quick. For duration, we found that active gestures took significantly longer than passive gestures. For trajectory length, we found that active took significantly longer. For speed, we found that passive took significantly longer than active gestures. And for our self-reported data, we found that it was significantly lower for close compared to the middle proximity. For behavioral interdependence, we found that it was significantly higher for close compared to far, and significantly less for passive compared to active. In terms of emotional reactivity, we found that it was significantly higher for active over passive. And in terms of perceived politeness, we found that passive was rated at as more polite than active. For the pass-through around, we found that both the middle and far conditions were significantly less likely to pass around than the close conditions, so they would be less likely to move around the characters. So for our key results, for research one, we found that co-presence was significantly lower in close proximity, and behavioral independence was higher in close proximity. For gestures, we found that active gestures increased emotional reactivity and behavioral interdependence, while passive gestures were rated higher for politeness. In terms of research question 2, we found that proximity was not significant in this case, but that active gestures increased duration and trajectory length, while passive gestures allowed for faster traversal. The key results from research question 3, participants were more likely to pass through the characters at the far and middle proximities compared to the close, and that gestures did not have a significant impact in this condition. So here are the key takeaways from the study. Both proximity and gesture significantly influence social and behavioral interactions in virtual reality, affecting not only emotional engagement, but also how participants navigate and perceive virtual characters. Our findings stress the importance of considering spatial and nonverbal cues in crafting immersive and socially realistic virtual reality experiences. We also have some limitations we should cover before we finish. So sample size, as this was a small sample size, of all people with prior VR experience, this limits the generalizability of the study. We also did not take into account cultural differences of people, so that which could have an effect on perceptions of proximity and gesture. We used a binary for our gestures, a simplified, which may not be fully capture the, fully capture the nonverbal communication that happens in the real world. And we also did not include audio cues, which can reduce the realism of the interaction. So for future goals, we plan to look into more nuanced gestures, a wider range of avatars, longer and more complex interactions with more than 2 characters, and physiological data to complement the questionnaire data that we already have. Thank you for, yeah. Yep.
Okay, are there any questions? Yes.
Thank you for interesting research and the presentation. I have a little question about that there is a feedback from the participants about the realism, right? Have you measured the how they were immersive or how they feel the realism? Because if so, I want to see whether they have if someone who has a higher immersiveness have a different choice or like the other way.
So we did not measure realism for this, so I don't have those metrics for you.
You did the experiment by yourself? Did you can you guess of that somebody is more focused or somebody is not, and is their decision different?
I'm sorry, can you restate your question one more time?
I mean, there is a decision whether they can pass to the middle or go around.
Yes.
And even though you don't have a measure, but they do have a feedback, and is there a difference between the participants who is more like focused or immersive, feel more immersiveness, or like not crossing the middle or like that?
I suspect that if you were correlating this with how intensely they were trying to get across, you might see it negatively correlated with realism, but I'm not sure.
Thank you.
All right, are there any other questions? Okay, I have one question for you. It seems like this task is an interesting interplay between pass-through ability and then the social dynamics associated with proxemics with virtual characters. So is the task perceived as being just simply a pass-through ability, a frontal pass-through ability task of is this gap wider than my shoulder width that I can pass through? Or do you feel like there is actually a strong influence of the virtual character's behavior and their distance?
So I get the sense that there's a strong influence of the virtual character from this. That it's not just can you squeeze through a gap, because all of the senses we get from watching, observing the characters interact, play a role in our avoidance decisions.
Okay. Is there any, did you measure participants' personality, whether they were introverted, extroverted? Did it make any difference?
We did not, but that would be a great thing to do in a follow-up study, I think, okay. Which we will take into account. Thank you.
All right, let's thank the speaker one more time. All right, so the second paper in the session is evaluating transferable emotion expressions for zoomorphic social robots using VR prototyping. The presenter will be Shaun Macdonald.
Okay, let's just get this going. That looks great and lovely. All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Dr. Shaun Macdonald, and I'm here to present our work as I said, evaluating transferable emotion expressions for zoomorphic social robots using VR prototyping from the University of Glasgow, and my wonderful co-authors, Robin Bretin and Salma ElSayed from the University of Glasgow and Abertay University, respectively, in Scotland. So, zoomorphic robots, they have many upsides. They can offer an alternative to pet companionship for those who cannot access or keep pets. They can emulate the benefits of animal companionship, helping to lower stress and do social facilitation. They're pretty cute as well, but they have some limitations. So, first of all, their affective and emotional interaction is quite limited, and it hasn't really changed much in the last 20 years. Exploring the design space is really expensive, obstructive, and it's quite robot-specific. You can see in these pictures some of the kind of more difficult, simple kind of prototypes people have used to explore really basic emotion expression, because it's just difficult to interact with these in a way that keeps their zoomorphic shape. And their use generally is limited to kind of more receptive, older and younger users in care settings. They haven't really broken through as a pet substitute in the home. So we wanted to explore if we could use VR prototyping to conduct, in this case, the broadest ever exploration of affective expression or emotion expression by zoomorphic robots, while circumventing these obstructive physical modifications. Our findings inform effective zoomorphic robot design, and our approach kind of helps show that the field can be made a bit more accessible to designers and researchers in this space who might not want to do the hands-on engineering. And with everyday AR on the horizon, we could apply findings from work like this directly onto robots or indeed other objects in the near future. So first, a little bit about the robot. So this here is Petit Kobo. So as you can probably see, Petit Kobo is an abstract zoomorphic robot. They're basically a furry circle with a tail that moves. They're very lovely, but they are a simple beast. They lack any clashing features, like a face or like any ears, or a lot of stuff that might clash with features we'd want to put onto it, which makes it an ideal blank canvas while still being recognizably zoomorphic. They have a tail that varies in movement and direction. They respond a little bit to touch, a little bit to sound in terms of intensity, but not much else. And they have a passive soft heartbeat, but that's all they do. So we use this as our baseline, and we made a virtual replica of Kubo, which you would interact with by placing your hand on the real version, and then the virtual version is still there, so you kind of get that, that kind of passive haptic feedback. We wanted to mirror kind of real interaction with the robot as much as possible, so we used hand tracking a lot of the controllers for our interaction. We used MetaQuest 2, Unity 2021, and real-time Oculus Link for a study, and what we did was we designed a whole bunch of effective expression modalities across 7 modalities, so texts, spoken texts, colored lights, movement, in this case the tail, the face of the robot, emoji above the robot, and sound across 5 basic emotions from Ekman's basic emotion model, resulting in 35 total expressions. And we drew these from various work on animal expression research, robot expression research from the past, cultural emotional associations with things like sound and color, as well as online communication. You end up with this big table. Obviously, this is quite a lot, and full details will be in the paper. But I'll give you a little kind of snapshot of what these modalities looks like. So here we can see from this video, hopefully we'll get some sound here as well. Lovely. So here's the facial expression example. It's a surprised face. Here's an angry emoji above the robot during touch. Here's showing a pink light, which we use to code happiness. Sad sound. Here we have the tail movement going. Here we have some text above the robot indicating its emotional state. And then
I'm feeling angry.
That same kind of thing, but communicated via text. And we put this into a big comparative evaluation user study. So we had 28 participants, 10 female, 10 male, between 21 and 41, and they experienced each emotion expression in isolation. So basically, in Latin square order, they tried each modality, and then within each modality, they experienced each emotion in a random order. And for each of the expressions they won, they first tried to guess which emotion it is that's being expressed, like try and from the 5 options as well as a not sure. They then rated how effective they felt the expression was. Basically, do they felt that it clearly communicated the emotion to them? And then they rated their empathy towards the robot. Did they sympathize or empathize or really feel that emotion that was being shown to them? They also, after that, ranked modality preferences, discussed their rankings. They discussed their prior experience with animals, and they discussed how they felt versus the natural versus the more artificial expressions in terms of the kind of source of origin. And then we did some participatory prototyping, where they went back into VR, and they used the fact that it's VR to kind of mix and match different emotion expressions and build their own multimodal expressions for happiness and sadness, followed by a bit of qualitative discussion. All qualitative data was analyzed using thematic analysis for this study. And yeah, please see the full paper for details. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff, and we're just going to zoom through a little bit. So we did the NARS, the negative NARS, which measures bias towards or against robots. Our participants had no strong bias for or against robots. Overall, across their time in VR, they had excellent presence, satisfactory involvement, and very good experienced realism with an IPQ. And you can see here from this general ANOVA that the modalities, i.e., text or tail or face or whatever, had a significant impact across how accurately they could tell which emotion was being shown and how effective they thought it was and their empathy, while specifically the emotion that was shown had an impact on accuracy, and the interaction as well had an impact on accuracy between the two. So for all of the various post-hoc contrasts and everything, please consult the paper because the tables are large and hard to read from this point, but I'll summarize some core findings. So in terms of recognizing emotion expressions, text and text-to-speech were most identifiable, which makes sense, right? It's literally written or said to you in plain English, followed by the emoji and the face. Light, sound, and tail were less clearly identifiable, and it did vary a bit by the emotion shown as well. Some were a bit clearer, some weren't. For example, blue light was a lot easier to tell was sad than our choices for scared or happy light, which were not very effective. And in general, scared or surprised were the hardest emotions to convey. In terms of participants' perceived effectiveness, they thought the face and the emoji were the most effective, even though they were not the most accurate at showing. And they found text and text-to-speech less effective despite that high recognizability, because there was kind of a lack of evocativeness. That component was pretty important to them. Light, sound, and tail were, again, more ambiguous, specific emotions. And then in terms of empathy towards the robot, so the face elicited the most empathy, followed by the emoji and then the tail. Other modalities existed kind of middling ratings. Text and light elicited the least. And there was similar empathy across all 5 emotions shown. And once again, please do consult the paper for all the juicy bits. But when asked to rank which modalities they actually preferred, and face was overwhelmingly preferred. People really, really wanted to see that in their designs. Followed by emoji. Tail and sound are kind of interesting because they weren't considered that effective or that empathetic or that accurate, but people did still rank them relatively high compared to things like text-to-speech and text. And then light was considered by far the worst in isolation. When we asked people a little bit about these reasons for these preferences, participants highlighted there was a tension between needing their modalities to be clear and interpretable. They don't want to play any guessing games, but they also want them to be evocative of real animals to capture that emotional experience. My rankings most follow the need for clarity by P1, or the facial expression allows me to consider the robot as if it was real and actually expressing an emotion by P28. We asked about the impact of animal experiences, and participants' prior animal experience did kind of color their expectations. Some weren't sure if they were interpreting things like the tail correctly because they didn't have that experience. And others felt they might be kind of looking at Kubo through that lens and making judgments based upon it. We then did participatory prototyping, so this was really cool. So as you can see from the video, basically participants went into a debug menu where they got to try all the different expressions together and kind of mix and match them to create their own multimodal prototypes. The most popular prototypes for happy was the face, the colored light, funnily enough, and the tail. And then for sad, the most popular was the, was the face, the sad, the kind of the ooh, drooping sound, and the tail. And you can see here the combinations of all of the different modalities used together. Face was by far the most used, followed by emoji, followed by light, whereas text and text-to-speech were almost never used. So when asked for their rationale for why they chose these things, so participants prioritized evocative and naturalistic modalities first, and then they supported those modes with modes that lent extra clarity, so like emoji or text, and they also wanted to provide some ambience and some amplification. So they wanted the emotion to be very visually clear or very obvious. Despite its poor ratings, light was the most was used in the majority of multimodal designs. So even though on its own it was not very useful at all, people really liked it as an amplifier for multimodal expressions. Looking at the implications here for zoomorphic robots and XR delivery of effective interactions. So, as we said, participants sought to evoke animals rather than simulate them with holistic multimodal expressions, choosing first evocative things and then clarifying that with easily interpretable modes. And they liked the idea of having modes like light and sound, which could signal emotions ambiently in order to allow pets to engage with users in a shared home setting rather than just in one-to-one. The face was by far and away, and this is the first time I think it's been really clearly demonstrated for zoomorphic robots, the most preferred modality. But if a robot already has a face, like Para the seal, for example, you could use an emoji above the head so as to not clash with the existing facial features. Like I say, light, sound, and tail did not stand on their own, but worked well in multimodal prototypes. In the paper, we outline a few ways that these different modalities could be kind of implemented in terms of simple, transferable physical operations, simple speakers or screens or motion. But I think the real meat here is delivering these things via augmented reality. So you can have an existing robot pet like Kubo, and you can project additional emotional expression onto them and basically upgrade their capabilities without having to actually tackle changing the robot itself. And it means people that have kind of ongoing relationships with their robots don't have to change that. You could store individualized long-term effective relationship data on the user side, on the AR side, and then have that so that each person can have a unique, specialized connection with the robot. And beyond that, could we apply pet-like effective interactions to other subjects? For example, you could add that same technology to plushies or to virtual animals and virtual environments, even to household appliances. We've all heard of smart fridges. What about an emotionally intelligent fridge? So in conclusion, we make design recommendations based on this widest comparative evaluation for zoomorphic robot expression modalities. We demonstrate that VR could be really effective at tackling the very difficult obstructive challenge of prototyping for this particular space and help to push the space forward. And we look towards how AR could deliver these enhanced pet-like interactions onto zoomorphic robots or other objects. I'll be here around if you want to ask any questions or meet Kubo as well. And thanks very much for your attention. Cheers.
Are there any questions? Okay. I can ask one question here, which is, for instance, did you notice any sort of evidence of the uncanny valley type reactions in users to your zoomorphic robots?
So actually, we did not. We actually had very, very positive qualitative reactions to the robot, so nobody really commented on it being either the robot or the virtual robot being weird. That being said, Kubo is so abstract that I think that actually helps to counteract a little bit. It doesn't have those sharp zoomorphic features. I have a study that is ongoing with somebody that really explores those effects on whether or not we see that uncanny valley for zoomorphic robots, same as we sometimes do for those very realistic humanoid ones. Results are ongoing, but I think it's an interesting result and not necessarily the same kind of level of uncanny valley effects that we see sometimes, particularly in anthropomorphic and realistic robots.
Yeah, I think you could administer the Godspeed questionnaire or any uncanny valley questionnaire just as a secondary measure, potentially, to collect that data. We can take one more question.
Yeah, great talk. I was interested in, did you use intonation for the text-to-speech ideas, or for when they express their emotions, or was it always like a plain, rather normal sound?
So we used a text-to-speech generator that had a little bit of emotional reflex on it, but not very much. And this was one of the main things that made it so flat and unevocative. And actually, we comment on the paper that, obviously the clarity of these modes is desirable, but right now, both the verbiage we chose, which was very neutral, very flat, to avoid damaging interpretability, is lacking. And so, yeah, I think that in future we'd want to use like a much stronger slants on that kind of interpretability. But there's also a bit of a harm in general in text-to-speech is maybe not the most natural form factor for animal-like robots, even though it's clear it doesn't feel like it's evoking those pet-like relationships. So there's a downside on that side as well.
Yeah, all right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's thank the speaker one more time. Our next paper talk is going to be virtual, and the title of the talk is Frankenstein's Monster in the Metaverse, User Interactions with Customized Virtual Agents. And the presenter is going to be Susanne Schmidt.
Everyone, my name is Susanne Schmidt, and this project was realized during my time at the University of Hamburg, together with Ipek, Köysürenbars, and Steinicke.
Perfect.
And as the title already tells, we explored the interaction with agents whose appearance can be fully customized. Figuratively speaking, this could be like interacting with Frankenstein's monster, so we didn't know whether an interaction partner whose body has just been assembled from a pool of body parts might be perceived differently by users. Where a lot of research has already been done is in the related field of avatar customization. If you are a gamer, you are probably familiar with such character creator menus that provide tons of options for customizing a personal game avatar, including hairstyle, clothing, and even some facial features. For example, in this character creator of Guild Wars 2, there are already 5 sliders to adjust the shape of the nose. The question we asked ourselves was, should this kind of customizability also be transferred to agents, that is, virtual humans that are computer controlled? If we are aiming for a perfect simulation of humans, then the clear answer is no. Because in the real world, you cannot exchange your doctor's hairstyle if you don't like it, for example. Nevertheless, of course, there are good reasons for us to desire for customizability, like, for example, tailoring an experience to a user's interest. To learn more about the user requirements for and the effects of agent customization, we conducted a user study with 30 participants. It was set up in 2 stages. In the first, study participants had as much time as they liked to customize both an avatar and an agent. The customization options were based on existing avatar creators, for example, Ready Player Me. Study participants were told that they would interact with the created agent in virtual reality in a second part of the study. Here too there was a comparison condition in which a non-customized agent served as the interaction partner. We collected a variety of different subjective and also objective measures, including open feedback on the criteria that study participants used to customize their avatars and agents. For agents, most of the participants considered the agent appearing sympathetic or approachable to be important. Some participants tried to create a certain look or a certain personality by customizing the appearance of the agent, and it was also mentioned that participants envisioned the later interaction or imagined being with the agent in their everyday life, and they wanted to ensure that they felt comfortable around the agent and that they enjoyed spending time with it. And finally, one customization criterion was to achieve or avoid a resemblance between the agent and the participant or people around them. While we did not find significant differences between avatar and agent customization regarding intrinsic motivation, which we measured using value, effort, and enjoyment questionnaires, we found that study participants prioritized different attributes. The attribute which was rated as most relevant, hairstyle, was consistent across both conditions, but for agents, upper body clothing received the same high relevance ratings as hairstyle, while upper body clothing only achieved rank 9 for avatars. On the other hand, facial features were more important for the creation of avatars. This is most likely because 23 of the 30 participants indicated a general tendency to make their avatars as similar to themselves as possible or as an idealized version of themselves. In the paper you can find more results on the different customization attributes, which hopefully can inform designers to find a suitable functional scope for agent customizers. Besides exploring user requirements for agent customizers, we were also interested in possible effects of agent customization on the subsequent user-agent interaction. To investigate this, study participants met their previously customized agent in VR. We hypothesized that through personalizing the experience, agent customization has positive effects on both rapport and trust. On the other hand, we also expected that exchanging the head of an interaction partner just minutes before the interaction would have a negative effect on perceived social presence and also the agent's anthropomorphism. You can see the two conditions that were tested for each participant. First, interacting with a customized agent, which is shown in blue, and second, interacting with a pre-configured agent, which was actually the one customized by the previous study participant, and this is shown in red. As expected, we found significant positive effects of agent customization on rapport, here shown on the left, and on trust, which is shown on the right. Surprisingly, the collected data also revealed a significant positive effect of customization on social presence and no negative effect on agent anthropomorphism. So all of these results together indicate a great potential of agent customization. Nonetheless, research in related fields taught us that there still might be risks to consider when we want to allow full customization of virtual humans. If we consider the spectrum of avatars that are created when users have complete freedom in their design, as it is the case, for example, in VR chat, we find that certain ideals of beauty are reflected. So, for example, not all body types are equally represented. And this reduced diversity might promote unhealthy beauty ideals and reinforce existing biases, as it was shown for social media. We were therefore interested in whether the same risk also exists with customizable agents. As a first step, we considered the agents that were created by our study participants. 23 of them were using the female model and only 7 the male model. Only 8 out of 30 participants chose some sort of wrinkle, which was the only category which was available to simulate different ages in the customized agents. Also, only 4 participants chose one of the 3 available options for darker skin tones for their agent. And of course, these results are preliminary, but they warrant further investigations into possible trade-offs between the presentation of, for example, atypical agent roles and also the possibility of individualizing the virtual experience without forcing uncomfortable interaction partners on users. Despite the positive results of our user study, we also want to note that these may be coupled to the presented context. In our case, that was an agent that served as an assistant. As can be seen from this table, our users only wished for full customizability for agents in their personal social circle. For other services like guides, doctors, or customer service, they preferred a selection or even a definite assignment of pre-configured agents. In summary, we conducted a 2-step user study which indicates that customization may support a trusting human-agent relationship without disrupting the illusion of interacting with human-like beings. Full customization was only desired for agents in the personal social circle, and contrary to previous research on non-humanoid agents, the optimal number of options per customization attribute differs between categories. Since we conducted a lab study, participants most likely would not spend 1.5 hours on customizing their virtual character, which is different to real applications like video games. Therefore, future studies in a home setting with a real application could provide further insights. And finally, I think it's very relevant to find ways for achieving a balance between diversity and allowing users to express themselves in a social environment where they feel most comfortable. this, I would like to conclude my presentation and thank you for your attention.
Okay. Susanne is online on Zoom.
Was realized during my time at university.
So Susanne is online via Zoom. If anyone has any questions. Okay, so I have a question, Susanne. So are there any effects of gender or ethnicity of the participants in the results that you found? Sorry, we have speaker issues.
Can you try speak again?
Can you try speaking again to answer the question? With regards to any gender or ethnicity effects on the results? Are you muted? If not, we can take the Q&A to Discord. So let's thank the speaker one more time. All right, so the last talk of the session is TouchMark, partial tactile feedback design for upper limb rehabilitation in virtual reality. And the presenter is Jingjing Zhang.
Hello everyone, my name is Jingjing Zhang. I'm a PhD student from the Industry Design at the Xi'an University. And today my topic is TouchMark partial tactile feedback design for upper limb rehabilitation in virtual reality. The first about the introduction. VR can be used in different contexts, including the rehabilitation, and using this VR can stimulate conditions that are hard to achieve in reality. So for some patients, the VR can provide for them an immersion, engagement, and self-environment for their do some daily training. And users' interactive experience can provide the haptic feedback, and but several traditional VR controllers just provide the limited tactile stimulation. So using the 3D printer can create the different tangible handle that with VR sensors, it means to connect the physical world and the virtual world. Several research also focus on the partial haptics. For example, the hand fingertips. So in our studies, we also focus on the fingertips. One important perception in virtual reality is the sense of embodiment, which refers that enable more nature interaction and allow the users to own the virtual body to do some virtual task. And it also has the 4 subcomponents. The first, the body ownership means the owner of the body, and the agency means the control of the virtual body. about the self-location means the being inside the water body. And finally, the last is the tactile sensation. It means feeling a more realistic and immersion haptic experience. So the enhanced embodiment may have a positive impact for these patients to improve their kinematic movements, and these patients can have in the overall hand to perform the rehabilitation task. This task more boring for them, but they need to do this task to improve their upper limb function abilities. And the haptic feedback also can strengthen the sense of embodiment. However, it's not unclear about the effect of partial tactile feedback on the user's embodiment. So we want to know the research gap to find some answers. And in our research, we also propose the TouchMark design. You can see the right picture. It means to combine the tactile cues from the red mark on the handles with the visual cues, the red mark in the VR, to enhance the connection by the user's sensitive. And we also choose the virtual cooking task for the patients because the occultation therapy can help patients to regain their ability to perform the activities of daily life. This task maybe include the washing, eating, or just doing the cooking things. So we choose this cooking task. And we have the 3 user studies to help us under the research question. I will introduce the details in next part. So we also have some contributions about the understand the whole partial tactile from the tangible handles to improve the user embodiment. And we also introduce the TouchMark to bring the gap between the physical touch and the virtual environments. It's a very cost-effective option for the further applications for the in-VR rehabilitation. And about the methods, we have the 3 user studies conducted as part of continuous exploratory research, and we also have the ethical approach from our university and the rehabilitation hospital in China. The first study is about the haptic prediction without visual information in non-VR environment, and several users to using these different tangible handles to perform the different hand movements. And they need to answer the question about their comfortable and tactile perceptions. This page shows some deep details about the different handles. It also has the 2 shapes using the cube or sphere and the 3 sides, and also has the 3 forms. After compare these different handles, we have the results about maybe the 3 forms of partial haptic feedback can be used in the further studies. So in user study 2, we also using the 4 tangible handles, 1 with no tactile partial stimulator at the baseline, and then we use the point line and ring the different form. And we also stimulate the VR kitchen environment, and you can see the right picture, it has the 4 steps. About the procedure of the user study 2, the first one is pre-experimental preparations. We need to help the users to know how to using the tangible handles, and we need to familiar the VR environment. And then for the VR task, they need to complete the VR soap preparation task using the different hand movement about the upward and downward, flipping out the rotation. It's different hand movement. And we also had the embodiment questionnaire or some interview to collect the subjective data, and we're also using the eye tracking to collect the objective data. So the results of the user study you can see the red picture about the tactile sensation, the form, ring, and line handles, it's significantly higher than no tactic. And about the body ownership, the line and the ring is significantly higher than the baseline part. And the agency and the self-location is similar. About the line, it's better than the no tactic. And about the embodiment, the results is the line and the ring forms over the no tactic and the point. So, and then about the eye tracking data, it's including the fixation count and the fixation lines. The user study 3 is about the patients who with the upper limb movement disorders, and they also need to use the 4 different tangible handles. And we change some experiment part, including the world head adjustment and reducing the number of trials and reduce the questionnaire. They need to answer the questions in the paper form. And we also delay the objective data in the user study 3. Okay, next about the discussion. The virtual rehabilitations can enhance the sense of embodiment using the TouchMark to improve their sensor feedback. And we also have some recommendations about using the line and the ring forms for users comfortable and the sensor integration. And it also has the economics design need to consider to help us you design the different handles. So about the hand fingertip sensitive, we can use the smart technique part to help user to understand the touch simulations, and we need to importance the haptic feedback with the visions to help us connect the physical and the virtual environment. We also use the 3D printer, and we are checking to help have the motion controller and have some user-centered designs with multi-modal feedback, and about the different tactile elements to connect the match form and function of the objects. So it also has some limitations about way using the subject measures, including the questionnaire and the interview, but maybe in the future we can use some different EEG or other objective measures. And we also complete the questionnaire for the old patients. Actually, it's not easy to understand our questions, so we need to explain them for many times. And in the futures, we maybe explain the simple size, and we also integrate the object measures, and we develop the different tangible tools for the different patients with hand issues. So we can automate this TouchMark for the more rehabilitations. About the conclusion, our research aims to unify the different tangible handles with a partial tactile feedback using users' embodiment when the users grasping the different handles during the virtual interaction. And we had some findings about the significant potential of the TouchMark. It's very easy form to enhance the user's embodiment for these patients. And it also can enhance the interactive experience for the users who had a limited wear experience, and it's a causative effect solution for the rehabilitations. And we can design the different tangible handles in the future rehabilitation application for these patients to recover their daily life. Oh, this is a reference, and then next. Okay, thank you.
We have time for a few questions. Are there any questions? One aspect of the haptic interaction that you were facilitating for participants in the VR experience is that there could be potential mismatch between, say, the inertia and mass of the object that you're wielding, the real physical object, and potentially the virtual objects. So did that potentially affect some of the embodiment scores? Do you think that it would have potentially affected participants' sense of realism with regards to the interactions? Because with the tracker at the tip of the physical object that you're wielding, it has a different mass, inertia, than the expected interaction with the virtual objects, such as the knife and so on, right?
Yes.
So do you think it would have affected their sense of realism of the interaction with the haptic devices that you facilitated participants with in the experience?
Sorry, your question is about?
We can talk about it offline.
Okay,
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so I want to thank all the speakers here in this session. With that, so let's thank all the speakers. Just a round of applause.